everyone, and welcome to Two Words with Taku. I'm Taku Mbudzi, and in this episode I'm going to be giving a quick review of a secret show by Melbourne rapper, poet and spoken word artist Tenda McFly.
It's a new dawn, a new day, and a new life. And it's moonlight and the hue light.
But in this episode I'm also going to be doing something a bit different. I'm going to talk about the sacred joy of being able to produce your own shows. I've done this before in Perth, where I produced a comedy show with seven to eight different comedians and a hip-hop artist, and we just shared our magic with a few people in an intimate bar, and it was just amazing. It was powerful and amazing. And so having watched Tenda's show recently in November, and it was a show of words and poetry and music and art, I just really felt like, rather than just give you a plain old boring review, what if I talk about what that feels like, what I've seen of Tenda's show, but also what I've experienced, that magic of making something, producing something yourself and sharing it with the world. And it's something that is small, and it's something that is intimate, and it's something that is very, very powerful. So I hope that by sharing what I saw of Tenda's show and some of my own insights, it might, I guess, give you some food for thought about the things that you could produce that don't necessarily have to be big fandangly productions, which I think as artists sometimes we get caught up in that I want to have this amazing show, it's going to be big, there'll be thousands of people lined up, and then we forget that, you know what, doing the small things, making those small shows, working with a small group of people can be equally powerful. All right, so what you've listened to is that song as just a nice intro so you can hear how Tenda speaks. But what I'm going to do is actually play you a snippet of an interview that I did with Tenda and his fellow collaborator, artist, musician, rapper, who's equally fabulous, who's called Z Music. What had happened was I was producing a radio play and I needed people to act out these different voices or characters that I had. And I came across Tenda McFly and Z Music through the Band of Brothers, which is a collective of artists. They're musicians, they're poets, they're writers, and they just play with words. And in a nutshell, I asked Tenda McFly to voice one of the characters in my play. And then after the recording that we'd done with the different people, I interviewed Tenda McFly and Z Music about rap, rhyme, and reason. And that episode is actually on this podcast, so if you do want to listen to it, you can find it. And so this snippet is just what Tenda said before he announced that he was doing the secret show. So here's Tenda and Z and I in the studio. I want to ask, what is the dream for you, Tenda McFly?
For me, I don't know. So as far as my music and poetry are concerned, I just want to keep doing more. And now I'm just like working towards doing my own show in November. And if I can pull that off and all the ideas that I have for that, I think I'd be hugely.
So what help would you need? What do you need to pull it off? No, I'm asking because you just don't know who's listening, and that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. You don't know.
Dream chasers, whoever's out there has got a bank account.
What do you need?
I need people to come through. That's pretty much all I need. Like, for the most part, I feel like I'm somewhat of an unknown entity in Melbourne.
You're known. You're known. You think you're unknown? You're in an interview.
In some respects, I feel like I'm an unknown entity in Melbourne because when I was growing up, I was doing most of everything that I did in Brisbane, and most of my content I did in Brisbane, and I did most of my shows there. So having moved to Melbourne and now having decided that I'm going to do this again and I'm going to do it right, I feel like I'm in that space right now. So. Yeah.
Oh, isn't that the best?
Yeah.
And I literally, that's the same story. Moved from Perth to come here. Same. I'm like an unknown, but look at me finding other unknowns, and we're making magic, and we're doing all these cool things, and
you're becoming known unknowns.
Yeah, we are known unknowns who will be known.
There you go.
So where do people find you, Tenda, so they can know you?
They can find me on Instagram. My handle is Tenda McFly. And they can find me on Facebook as well. It's Tenda McFly. And if you still have MySpace, I'm sure there's an account somewhere.
Please. No. The BlackBerry and MySpace, I want.
You see, like this dude, he's ancient.
All right, if you'd like to hear more from that episode, just check out episode number 58 on this very podcast, 2 Words with Taku. It's called Rap, Rhyme and Reason with rappers Tenda McFly and Z Music. All right, so now I'll continue on to my actual review of this magical secret show. And I've said and use the word sacred joy because it is something that I feel is quite divine. There's something very sacred about that moment when you realize an idea or a vision or an artistic dream that you've had, and then you share that with people. So what I'm going to talk about is, I guess, the beauty of doing that, and then some of the practical things that come with doing this. So the first thing that I've written is when you do and when you produce your own small show, a basic budget can go far. I think one of the big things for for us artists is, how am I going to fund making this play? How am I going to fund making this show or this production? And, when I look at what Tenda did with his show, which was called Memoirs of a Decent Man, based on his album Memoirs, it wasn't a massive production, and even the ticket pricing, I think we paid about $25. It felt good. It felt right. It just felt like, I don't know, I felt like that budget worked. For whatever budget they had for their show, it worked. And, on the night they had drinks and they had, a little bar and, there wasn't any furniture, but it almost set the tone for what we were to expect. It was just really simple. And by using the word simple, I'm not trying to say it was, it wasn't good quality. It was just, they kept it clean. They kept it lean, and so I found that quite inspiring because for a lot of us, we want to get a lot of money to make these great productions, but you know what, I think if you're very clever with your budgeting and your ticketing, you can still have a very effective event. And that's definitely what I experienced being at Tenda's show. The other point I want to talk about is how small can always be scaled up. So as I sat in this abandoned warehouse where Tenda was hosting his show, I really felt like I was in something that could easily have been scaled up to a theater, an auditorium, or even a stadium. There was something really beautiful in the detail of which they prepared this show. The fact that we were sitting on the floor was actually really quite, I don't know, it was just part of that experience. I felt grounded. I felt like I was part of the whole production, because what he did was he had, I think it might have been even 8 to 10 different performers come and join him on stage. And it wasn't an actual stage. It was just, the stage or the space where they spoke or where they performed, where the gear was set up and the mic was pretty much on the same level as we, the audience, were sitting. And there was something really quite beautiful and intimate about that. But as I experienced that, I still felt like that's something you could scale up. They didn't go out of their way to put bells and whistles and have, roped off areas and ushers and all this. No, it was so simple and beautiful. And then the impact was in what they did with that space. It was a cozy, intimate space. It could have been, honestly, I don't know, it could have been 50 to 80 people, maybe 100 if you're pushing it, but it was just right. And I think that's something to think about, is if you do something that's really small, you can learn from that and scale it up. The other thing I really liked about Tenda's show was how he had a very solid and small production team. And you could see it, he had somebody by the bar, he had his people emceeing at some point. I think it was Z, who was almost running the show and just telling us what's happening. He had different people, doing the camera stuff and musicians. And interestingly enough, it was almost like the production team was part of the audience, and you couldn't tell who was what, if that makes sense. There was something very seamless about how the whole team was working together. I thought that was quite good. The next point was how he really collaborated well with his fellow artists. So Tenda is a rapper, he's a spoken word artist, he's a writer, he's a performer, he is a wordsmith. And what he did was he invited his fellow wordsmiths to come and be part of this show with him. And I think there's something really powerful in doing that, because it shows that there's no ego. That's the sense that I got from watching the show, but also in the lead up to the show. It felt like, yes, it's Tenda's show, it's his name, it's his album, but he really was also lifting and showcasing his fellow artists. So when I went there now with my boyfriend, we're sitting there and we're listening to these new stories, these new poems, these new words. It was like, who are these people? Where have they come from? Such depth, such authenticity, and such heartfelt storytelling that we would not have known about if it wasn't for Tenda inviting these other artists to collaborate with him. And I think that's something that other people should really look at. How else can you work with other people to produce your own shows? Yes, but also to celebrate the people who do what you do. When I did that comedy show, I honestly had said the whole year, I want to do my own comedy show. And then when it came to putting it down on pen and paper and actually producing it, I went, I'm going to need some other people to also make it a full experience for my audience. It can't just be about me. And having those different comedians honestly added a new depth to that show. And I'm so glad I did it, because I learned about how to collaborate. So what I thought was quite powerful with Tenda's show is he knows his strengths, but he also knows the strengths of his fellow artists and spoken word performers, fellow writers, and he was able to create a very full experience around his community. And that kind of leads into the next point about, I thought it was quite powerful that we got insight into this corner of this world that is his and his people and what they're doing. A lot of them are a bit younger than me, but wow, the maturity of the words that they were saying, the themes they were talking about, the stories, love lost, love found, discrimination, power, art. It was just mind-blowing. And I think there's something to be said about growing your community one heart, one ear, one mind at a time. So by doing this really small, secret, intimate show, and Tenda invited just, his people or his crew, and then maybe a few other people he's met along the way, it just starts to plant the seed in these other little places. And, look at me now. I'm reviewing this show. I don't know Tenda that well, but I was really moved by it. And then now all of you who are listening are hopefully going to be curious about him. So again, just, growing your community one ear at a time and trusting that process is really, really quite powerful. And sometimes it does take stepping away from the limelight, stepping away from the madness of everybody saying, oh, you should do it like this, or you should be on social media and do it like this and like that. But, really almost pulling back and creating this hub, this joyous little, circle of people who support and understand and love and appreciate your art. I think that's really powerful, because going back to my first point or my second point, once you've really crystallized this, that can be scaled up, that can grow organically, but you have to trust that and know who you want to be having in that corner. And I think Tenda did that really well by the way that he promoted it, the way that he whispered about it, the way he planted these seeds of curiosity about, this secret show. I felt like, oh, I want to be part of the secret crew. How does it work? And in fact, when we got to the event, we had a password, so if you didn't say the right password, you weren't going to get in. Which, okay, to be fair, they probably would have let us in, but still, it added to that whole part of, or that whole thing of being part of something, new and unique and small and private and special. My favorite part of the show was how he used visuals to enhance the performance. Words. There are words all around us. People sing, people perform, people write poetry, but I'm also quite visual. I've come from architecture. I've come from, trying to make film and video and photography. And so during the course of the night, Tenda had, his different performers. They were reciting their poems, which were phenomenal. And we're sitting in this space that is lit really intimately. And when Tenda came out, he had these visuals behind him. So they were projected behind him. And, we went through all the motions of, watching flowers unravel and unfold in these time-lapse montages, to watching, these abstract lines and shapes, dance across the screen behind him, to then being thrown into space where, you're seeing stars and, galaxies. And, for me, who's quite visual, it really captured my imagination. And I thought it was just brilliant. And I think that's something we as artists can look at, is like, how else can we create an experience using other art forms that enhance and complement our main art form? So essentially what I'm trying to say is, Tenda's case, his gift is speaking and rapping and words and reciting. But as an artist, as a versatile artist, he was able to incorporate visuals, and video and photography to really just throw us into the words, to make us think about them, to make us try and understand deeper, or to decipher what he's actually saying. Like, why on earth would he choose flowers, as he's reciting something about love or something? I don't know. So I thought that was quite interesting, and it's got me thinking about, okay, so how can I challenge myself in the way that I speak, or the way that I write? How else can I be creative about that? So that's something to think about. And then lighting is another thing that I mentioned that was quite effective here. He used blue lighting. There was a lot of blue lighting, and you'll see it in the photographs that I post on the episode. But it was great. You don't need, massive spotlights. You don't need, you really just don't need to do too much to create an experience, to create a space, to create a tone, to create a feeling, a mood. When you look at those blue photographs, I can't explain it. Something did feel secretive. Something did feel, deep. Something did feel intimate. I keep saying this word, intimate, intimate, intimate. It was like we're invited into this space, a space where people are sharing their hearts, a space where people are sharing their truths. And, if it was bright white light, or if it was just red light or yellow, I don't know if it would have worked as well. So there was something very intentional about creating a space where people could really feel. And I think the lighting really helped do this for me anyhow. The other thing I want to talk about, the sacred joy that comes from producing a small show, is that you have the time to perfect your art. Rather than working towards one massive show that takes a lot of time, energy, money, resources to produce, when you do these small little shows, you can test ideas, you can test what works, you can ask for feedback, you can almost be playful without that additional pressure of it being a big, massive show. And the example that I can give is when I was doing this comedy show back in Perth last year, I had thought, I'm going to book out a theatre, and that was going to cost me $8,000 to book out a theatre, and then I was going to have to make all those ticket sales, I was going to have to chase up the marketing, all of that. And I really looked at it, and it started to feel overwhelming. And when I came back to the essence of what I wanted to do, I just wanted to make my friends and my community and people who'd followed me, I wanted them to laugh. And I had a really good mentor who runs a massive comedy lounge in Perth. And when I called him, he said, you know what? There's something really powerful about picking a small venue and packing that out, and then doing that very well. And then, if it sells out, then you do another one, and you do another one. Because every time you do those small shows, you're perfecting your art, but you're also growing your audience, you're growing demand. And then by the time you are ready to sell out a theatre or an auditorium or a stadium, you've done your homework. So again, looking at Tenda's show, yes, it was small in terms of the scale of it, where it was, the number of people, but oh my goodness, that guy knows exactly what he's doing. And that excites me as a fellow artist or a fellow writer, a fellow person who works with words, a fellow storyteller. I'm excited to see what he does next. I'm excited to see, is there going to be another secret show? And yes, there is. And then, so what is he doing? And that's what works, is creating that mystery, even doing those small things and playing and just starting to pull people along with you. And I definitely want to encourage, if anybody's thinking about doing their own show, it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. It doesn't matter if, a handful of people come. It doesn't matter. The fact is, you almost have to start. You have to do those small ones and test them out. Now, I know Tenda, he's been performing for quite a while, but as he said in that clip before, he feels like he's relatively new to Melbourne. So this was the perfect way to, introduce himself, I guess, for us to get to know him. It's almost like a taster, a teaser, for us to just say, who is this guy? What is he about? And I think that's something that we can all learn from. My other point, is I liked how there really was a focus on depth and authenticity. So during the show, they had an open mic, and anybody could come and share a verse or share their thoughts on this open mic. And people did. And, I just found the audience was so generous. I've done open mics before, mainly comedy. And it's scary when you get up there and you haven't really, prepared, inverted commas. You don't know how the audience is going to receive you. And it takes a lot of guts to do that. But wow, the love this audience had for people who were coming up and sharing them, themselves really was really quite humbling. And yes, I was in the audience, so I was loving the stories, I was loving the performances, the poems, but I was also watching the audience as someone who's done the open mics before and going, wow, this audience is so generous and so loving, and they are listening, they are attentive, they are present. And again, I think Tenda did that very well by setting the tone for what to expect, by saying, it's secret, by saying it's not for everybody, by showing some of his other work, by showcasing and, doing trailers of the kinds of people who are going to perform. It was almost like he was filtering out who was going to end up being part of the audience to experience these people, these artists, and these stories. So I think that's something to learn about, being authentic and being honest and truthful from the start of the story of, I've got this idea and this is what I want to do, and just literally following it through until the very end. And, in that snippet where he says, what do I want? I just want people to come through. They did. They really did. So his performers did. They came through and were honest and courageous with what they shared, and also fun and playful and funny. And then the audience came through too. They came with respect, they came with love, they came to honor and to enjoy this moment. So I think, there's something very real about what I saw and experienced, and I really enjoyed it. And I think that's something for all artists to consider. If you are going to do the small stuff, that's good. It means you can be more real before you try and scale up, or before you try and make it too big. Like, test it out, test the real stuff out, in a smaller way or with a smaller group of people. There's just such deep magic in that. And I'm sorry to sound like I'm a bit off with the fairies, but as in, I don't know, that's the language that's coming to me right now. Depth, magic, sacred, these things around art, they're important. And then lastly, I think the most powerful thing was the secrecy. Secrecy is sacred. And that's why I said that sacred joy of producing your own secret shows. There is something so beautiful about making your own thing. There's something so powerful about making your own thing the way that you see it, and inviting people to share that with you. If you look at the world and everything that's happening, and just a lot of the expectations that we have or that we put on ourselves, comparing ourselves to other artists, etc., it can be just soul crushing. But that thing around the secrecy, You know, you don't have to show everything to everyone. You don't have to share everything with everyone. You don't have to be everywhere or be everything. You can even do things in private that you don't necessarily need to tell the world about. And I think that's where that sacred joy comes from, I think, for me anyways, is having the choice. So having the choice to make the stuff how you want it, and then having the choice to share it if you want to, because it's something that is close to your heart or something that you feel very passionate about. So in this situation with Tenda, I mean, the way that he marketed his show about it being a secret show, I think I did that interview with him, it might have been October, and then he was saying, oh, the show's coming up in November. And everything on his social media, everything was around, you know, the secrecy, you know, this is what's happening. You know, it's, you know, we didn't know where it was until the day, you know. So what that secrecy did was it created mystery and curiosity. And I think as artists, that's what we want. We want people to be curious about us, to find out about us. And that's okay if you don't have to do that straight away. You can take your time, you know, sharing your work. And so when I say producing your own secret shows, I mean, you could start a podcast and not tell anyone. That's okay. You could, you know, make videos that you don't necessarily have to make public. It doesn't matter. But that secrecy and that secrecy around who and what you share with, where is joy. That is creative freedom. And that is my jam. That is what I'm about. This podcast, everything that I've been doing, all my stories, all my stand-up, all the work with the kids, the books, everything crystallizes down to, I really want people to feel the creative freedom that I feel when I make my own stuff. And I'm not asking for permission. And I'm not asking for somebody to say, yes, I can. I just make what my heart wants to, and I make it with the people that I want to. And that's why when I went to Tenda's show, I got it. I got that this guy is free. He's making the stuff that he wants to make. And that show, that secret show, was for the people who wanted to know. And that show was for the people that Tenda wanted to know. And that is sacred and it is powerful. So I think the whisperings that I'm hearing now again is that there might be another secret show. And I don't know how he's going to top this first one. Honestly, I don't know how, but I'm already curious and I want to be there. And if you're in Melbourne, I hope you will be there too. So you've been listening to me, and I'm Taku, and this is my podcast all about writing, storytelling, and putting words together. And this is what I do. I talk about people's stories, I talk about people's words, and you know, today I've reviewed the work of somebody who I actually admire, somebody who inspires me, and somebody that I've collaborated with in a very small way, but somebody who I'm very excited to see what he'll do next. So if you want to look for Tenda, his name is Tenda McFly. You can find him on Instagram and on Facebook, Tenda Can Fly. But I'll put all the links in the blog post. And then if you are curious about me and what adventures I've got, you can find me at taku.com.au, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter as @TakuSpeaks, and I'm on Facebook as Taku TV. And to play out, I'm going to play one of Tenda's other songs. This one's one of my favorite songs, to be honest. So this is Lavish. You can find it on the album Memoirs, which is available on Bandcamp. All right, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a fabulous day.
I just want you to know, can't treat people like this. I just want you to know, can't treat people like this. I just want you to know, can't treat people like this. I just want you to know, can't. I just want you to know, can't. I just want you to know, can't treat people like this.
We are here with Mr. McFly, live and direct. He said he wants to tell
Can I tell you a little bit about Brittany? You with me? Just a little bit. Okay. I met her in this city. It's silly, but really, we was just hanging like we used to, trading jokes. And she looked at me like, Tenda, I swear you got some screws loose. What if I do? I think to myself as I think about you. We were 16, sexting messages. Shit, it's 10 and I'd send 16 messages. And now that I'm out of credit, I'd send a message I couldn't edit about how I didn't know where we were headed. I was young, confident, with dreams of living lavishly. 3 minutes kept us talking, truthfully and passionately. And that's when she asked me if I thought she was prettier than Ashley. The truth is, she was super fit. But Ashley, though, I'm sorry, I was young, superficial, with dreams of living lavishly.
Boy! Can you tell us a little bit more about Ashley?
I always wanted to be Michael, but couldn't get the title. My mama read the Bible, but I was no lead disciple. See if I know, see if they know. If my road to absolution that I dreamt about a day ago became paved with a solution, these elixirs cushion indica, fat booty Vivica, and skinny tall Lydia. Black Nubian queens from Namibia, corrupting and fucking up my melody. And melody only attraction is a wedding ring. I swear them girl, them man, they fucking up the funk, fucking up the fun, fucking up my melody. Right then and there, her mom came yelling like she mad at me. She's too good for you. I knew it was true. That's when this love turned to travesty. Hey Sally, Brittany, and Ashley, she said, his name is Tenda. His broke cheating ass his dreams of living lavishly.
Oh, wow. You really messed up, didn't you? You really fucked up.
She was always talking like she's leaving, talking like she'll leave him in the deep dark of the night, dark of the evening. Talking like I'm the type to leave that nigga sleeping. I be keen in his beamer for thinking he can see Nina. Fuck that nigga, I bet you never see me. Y'all better both duck, bob, and weave, cause I'm out here pulling weaves like it's World Star. Is this world ours? I don't know anymore. Guess it's your girls now.
How are you still alive? I would have hunted you down.